How are you doing? I just wanted to check in with you today with a bunch of my friends. Together, we have written a book called Unshakable Peace in an Unsteady World, and we're going to talk about that. I have to say, I when I think about momming and the mom life, the first word that comes to mind is definitely not peace. I
Mm.
personally found maybe chaos to be a better word in describing momming. And I was a little bit surprised at that. But, it's okay. I just think it's a fact of life with children and with family life. And so, anyway, I wanted to tell you a little bit about us. We're four women who came together several months ago, a little over a year ago. We were put together by a group called Creatives, and we really had nothing to do with one another except for the fact that we are writers. And as we've gotten to know each other, we of course have come to see that we have a lot in common. But we are from four different parts of the country. We have different family makeups. We're at different ages, different stages of our lives. And that has, rather than divided us, it's made it a really dynamic group that we've really enjoyed, and we have given a lot to one another. But anyway, on this journey that we were kind of forced into, we were having conversations about, kind of, yes. Joni, did you need something? Okay. Because this can be edited, so it's okay. I'm just gonna let you know that.
Waving
Okay,
off
so
family.
what's that?
Waving off family.
Which is life, right? Real life. So anyway, we were put together by this group, and we found ourselves talking about what could we bring into this world in this crazy time of COVID in particular. What did people need? What did moms need? What did women need? And we really determined that peace was what we were all sort of searching for and hoping for. And so as we had that discussion, we kind of talked about, let's each share a story, maybe put it together in some kind of PDF. One thing led to the next. Jodi had already published with a company called Milk and Honey. And here we are. We are about to release, or have already released by the time you listen to this, our book, Into the World. We are really excited about it. We believe it is a very rich resource for peace. In it, you're going to find, oh, darn, does anybody have their book that they could hold up? Of course, there it is. There's our beautiful book. Thanks. I wish I had mine. I should be able to take a picture of that. Actually, yeah, okay. So that's our beautiful book. And in that book, you are going to find stories, reflective questions, prayers, journal space, and even some coloring pages. So we're going to take you on our journey to peace through those stories, and we're really excited for you to join us. Tonight, we're going to talk in general about what has taken peace from us and how we have figured out how to get some peace back. So again, we're happy you're here with us. We're happy to be together, and we're going to try to share with you some nuggets from our lives ways that we have found peace. And so now I want to introduce you to each one of us here. We have what, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves. And here's what I'm going to have you talk about. We're going to talk about who you are, where you live, a little bit about your family, and the message that you are passionate about bringing to moms. Let's start with, go ahead, Jess, you start.
Sure. So I'm Jess Carey. I live in Phoenix with my husband of 16 years and two teenagers or almost teenagers. I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. We're now a family of five. My mother-in-law, who's 73, just moved in with us. So we have some additional family members to care for, and that's a new season of life. So that's exciting. But the message that I feel like God often presses into my spirit is actually to encourage moms to recognize or realize that their dreams and hopes are not put on hold in lieu of their children's. And
Mm.
so you do a side by side sort of thing. I'm all about courage. I'm all about taking leaps of faith. I'm about a sacrificial life for your kids for sure, but not at the expense of God's plans and purposes for your life. So that's one of the things I'm very passionate about with moms.
Love that. Love it. Okay, Michele, how about you?
I'm Michele Wilber, and I live in California with my husband, and I have one son who's 12. I'm a former foster parent, and one of the things that I'm truly passionate about is seeing that moms use their giftings exactly where they are. I think sometimes us as moms think we have to do a little bit of this, be the best room mom, be the best, sports mom. And so just, I think that causes a lot of, stress in our homes. But as we use our giftings and find comfort in that, we will have more peaceful homes. Because I know for myself that when I am not peaceful or things aren't going the way I had planned, that certainly sets the tone for the rest of the house.
Is the truth. Yeah, that expression, when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. It's a heavy burden, but it's the truth. So whether we like it or not, it's true. That's awesome. Thank you, Michele. And how about you, Jodi?
Hi, I'm Jodi Kinasewitz. I live in Mason, Ohio with my husband, Matt, of going on 21 years now. We have 4 kids. Our oldest is in her first year of college at the University of Tennessee. And we go down the line with our son, who's a junior in high school, another daughter who's a freshman, and then another daughter who's in 7th grade. I am a school teacher. I did special education for 21 years, and I now teach at one of our elementaries as a reading specialist. So I work with all grade levels, K-4. I'm a certified yoga teacher as well. I really have a big passion for Christian inspired yoga. And I developed, like many people, or I guess I discovered a love for reading and writing when the world shut down and we had lots of time at home. And that's what prompted me to join Call Creatives and meet this lovely group of ladies. And for me, definitely my message, if you follow me or if you've had an opportunity to read anything that I've written, it's definitely that importance of moms keeping their mental health at the front of their mind. Much like what Jess and Michele shared, just that sacrificing for your kids, which I believe wholeheartedly in that as well, but that white knuckling of controlling and managing and the perfect schedule and the perfect birthday party and I'm at the guilt of being a working mom and not being able to do as much as I had hoped to do for the kids when they were growing up in their school. So just carrying all of that and therefore controlling things that I could control, which really were all those small petty things that built up to a lot of stress and anxiety. And I went through a pretty difficult season of anxiety and depression. So for me, absolutely, my message is to God first, then family, and those 2 things, and everything else will fall into place. And if things aren't in place, that's okay.
Yeah.
Life will go on for sure.
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes. And as the oldest member of our little group here, I can tell you, the hindsight is 2020 thing. So I'll just say I'm Elise Daly Parker. I've been married for 37 years to a wonderful man, Chris Parker. And I have 4 children. Lauren is 44, married with 2 of our grandbabies. And then there's Farrell, who's 33, Katie is 32, and she just turned 32, and Amelia is 27. So grown and flown. They're all over the place. But I was that mom who, well, first of all, I thought it was a lot simpler than it was to raise people. I wasn't as good as I thought I was going to be. I think it was partially a thing about, my mother hadn't done it so well. So I was really going to reparent in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to do it all. And I of course failed, because we all know you can't do it all. And was the yes mom. And so out of that, That's what my ministries come out of. MomVision. I'm also a MOPS mentor mom, but MomVision is really about savoring and not just surviving motherhood, because I think when you do get too busy and when you try to work in things that are not your gifting, you end up scurrying and trying to make it from one end of the day to the next, and that is no way to live. So just in hearing you all express your hearts, it's kind of like, this is why we're together. This is why God has put us together, because we have a similar heart, even though we're at different stages. So I'm really, really thankful for that. So again, we've written this book, Unshakable Peace in an Unsteady World, definitely because we've had our peace shaken.
Yes.
And today I want to start by talking about what would you say are some of the things, which we've kind of touched on a little bit already in sharing who we are, but what are some of the things, or what is a thing that you would say has really shaken your peace, in a few years past or around this time?
I would say for me, again, just that never feeling completely at peace. If I was at school working, I was constantly thinking like, oh, I wish I was at the kids' school volunteering for the holiday party. Or when I was at home with my children in the evening, trying to be very present with them and for them, and shutting off my work day and my school day. I had a very difficult time. I would bring home the baggage of my students. I had a lot of very needy students, some difficult home lives, and I couldn't shut off those emotions. I was kind of like their mom during the 7 hours that they were with me. So I felt like I was constantly in another place. When I was at work, my mind was at home. And when I was at home, my mind was at work. So being able to try to find that balance and set those boundaries was very difficult, because like you said, Elise, I wanted to be the yes person. And I was, and I took on too much. And I guess I always knew I had this like sense of heightened anxiety or worry, or that hustle and hurry, just get it done, check everything off the list. I knew that about myself, but I just chalked it up to, oh, that's my personality, type A, driven, gonna get it done, put the nose to the grindstone, power through. And it took a real awakening, a real like kind of spiritual like knock on my heart and on my physical body. Because I think God was knocking for a long time, trying to get my attention to connect with him more and to find peace in him and to surrender in a lot of ways. And I was just white knuckling everything, controlling and manipulating. And so he physically kind of had to bring me to a stop. And that's what kind of went into my season of dealing with the anxiety and the depression.
Yeah, that's intense. And I do think a lot of, maybe everybody hasn't had your experience, but that experience of, I certainly had, when I was working, I felt like I should be with my children. When I was with my children, I had more work to do. So there was a real sense of not being in the moment. And that, I just don't think that's good for our brains. It's just, I just recently did a podcast on mom guilt. This is part of mom guilt. It's like never feeling like you're where you're supposed to be, or you're good enough, or you've made the right choice. So
that constant questioning. Yes, for sure.
Second guessing.
And we think we're multitasking, but we're not. We're really not. Like, I used to think I'm the queen of multitasking, and it's like, no, I mean, everything was just kind of like a blur, so.
Jodi, you're just blowing it all up right now. Like everything is just exploding right now. Everybody's like, what? I multitask. You're like, yes.
This is a good
do.
I think we do. The brain like scientifically cannot do that.
That's right. But that's sort of new news. I mean, I've read some of those reports that are saying, we think we're multitasking, but we're not. And honestly, I'm not even kidding. That is another episode. We have to go into that in more detail, because there are badges of honor that have to do with multitasking and
Mhm.
doing a million things.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
we hopefully, as experienced moms, can help some of
Mm.
the younger moms know that it's not, it's too high a cost. It's
Yep,
too
for
high a
sure.
price
Yeah.
to pay.
Yeah.
We can all bring our medals of multitasking and we'll burn them like a
Yeah.
ceremonial thing. We'll just burn them on behalf of all the other moms.
Yes, that's what they're worth.
That's just what they're
Not
worth.
Yes.
not a club you want to be a part of.
No, no.
Exactly.
No.
You think you do, but turns
Yeah.
out you don't. Turns out you
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Who
I
else would
love
like
that,
to
Jodi.
share? What else steals your peace?
Um,
That's a big one. So
yeah, I mean, there's lots of things. I've had lots of different seasons that had a different mark on it that threatened my peace. But I'll talk about one that's actually not in the book. So you can come back and you'll have to read the ones that are in the book. How do you like that? But
good.
a season of lack in our marriage, in our life, where legitimately Alex and I were struggling to pay rent, didn't know where necessarily our next meal was going to come from, in the sense of we didn't get paid for a very, very long time. And with two young kids and a mortgage, or not a mortgage at the time, we were just renting, but it's like rent and roof over your head and, gas in the car and all the things, it really hijacks your sense of security, which I think sometimes
Yeah.
peace and security are like interchangeable in our minds, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that for me, that season of lack of uncertainty about our finances really, shook me big time. And what I learned from it, and here's, God's word is always true, always true.
Mhm.
You know, his word never returns void. And so he says to us as his kids, like, your needs will be provided for. He's like, don't worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear. Don't I supply the birds of the field? It's in
Yes.
Matthew, I think Matthew 6, but don't quote me on that. But at any rate, like, I clung to that scripture. I was like, okay. I'm like, I see the birds. The birds are okay. We're going to be okay. Yeah. And, I was like, I don't know how, but they are,
Yeah.
and every day it was like things like this would happen. Alex and I would be invited out to dinner with a business partner, right? Like, so these are like critical, like we had to go because
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
actually needed these people to, like, buy something. And we'd go out to dinner and or be invited out to dinner by them, as just friends or whatever. And we'd be sitting there and, we'd look at the menu and Alex and I were like, you want to split this or that? We just,
Mhm.
it's that kind of like always stirring up your sense of insecurity. But we would just go through the meal. And then at the end of the meal, the other couple or business would buy dinner for us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was just these little moments where God was like, I'm faithful.
Uh-huh.
You are being faithful to what I've asked you to do. So I will provide always.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
So
my
good.
thing. Go ahead, Michele,
Yeah.
or Elise. Come on, either one.
Go ahead, Michele.
I was thinking back to a time when our family experienced a lack of peace, but God really showed us how our dependency on Him was really needed. I think I mentioned in the introduction that we were foster parents.
Yes,
If
I
there's
know
ever a
that.
time in your life where you don't have control in your life, it's when you're fostering. I mean, you've got social workers, you've got county people, there's caseworkers that have the ability to come into your home at any time.
Wow.
I mean, they control what temperature your water is at, how you store medicine. You've got
No
visits you're
way.
taking kids to. So it's really a time where, for somebody like me who likes a calendar, who thinks, has this false sense of control by putting everything on a calendar, it's a time in your life when you really have no control.
Yeah.
You don't have control of a child who's hurting. You don't have control of any of the systems. You don't have control of your day. And so it can feel like your house is just full of chaos and you feel like you're not peaceful. But it was just really a time in our lives when God showed me, hey, you have to depend on me in everything, in all times, not just during this particular season, for that sense of peace.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily going to be something that, everything was going to be calm and perfectly fitting on a calendar. But the Lord really used that time for us to depend on him in all things.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I did not know that about you,
I
Michele.
know.
Look at that.
I know.
I know.
That is
I didn't
crazy.
either.
We're
Did
learning
you
a lot
tell us
about each other as we sit here because
Yeah.
as we started, we don't really know each
That's
other.
We've never been in the same
I
room.
mean, we've never been in the same room other than a virtual room. So that's really interesting. And I
Mhm.
cannot even imagine that level of invasiveness where anybody can make decisions like that for you or determine what's right or what's wrong in your own home. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. That would be hard to deal with. I was thinking about it too, and I was thinking I'm going to admit there's a lot of things that can steal my peace. I think too, I have some internal anxiety, and so if there's kind of a mess around me, if you saw this table right now, the way my husband left it, I'm okay with it. But that combined with children who were, that was a very hard thing for me. But one of the things I feel has continued to threaten my peace, just in general, without telling some of my specific stories. Like I was thinking back to even when my kids were little, if they got sick, I could really get terrified. Like a fever would kind of freak me out, or, a lot of vomiting or whatever. And it's kind of what we're talking about. It's that lack of control. There was nothing I could do in some of those cases. And how that's translated into adulthood is, my children make decisions now as adults that I have absolutely no control over and should have no control over. I mean, as I've told you, they're all adults. And yet I can get so worried about my kids. And I can, just go over the thoughts that I'm afraid of for them. And what it boils down to is, what I feel the Lord has always said to me is, you just have to trust me, which I think we've all said in our own ways and in different circumstances. And it's just kind of, how does the Lord test that trust? For me, it's, my kids don't live here. They live two of them live in the city. Another one lives in Virginia. Another one lives in another city. They're all over the place. I have no real control over them, no connection to them that means I can see what they're doing and where they are and who they're with and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a ongoing letting go and really getting that God sees them, that he's not just my God who sees me or sees us when we're in a household together. I mean, it sounds kind of funny, but it's like I forget, this is a God who adores my children. They are his children. And so he is watching out for them without me. He can do it without me. And again, cares as much for them as I do, if not more. And so that for me, I have to be reminded of it from time to time, but that for me is where I can lose my peace if I start to think about, where are they? What are they doing? Is so-and-so walking home right now? Are they, and a lot of times I have to not think about it because there's no point. But the bottom line is, God sees them, knows them, loves them. And that really helps me. And I feel like in some ways we've answered the second question that I was going to have for tonight, but we're going to do it anyway, which is, what do we do? But maybe we can get a little bit more specific. What do we do when we get to that point where we are feeling my peace is slipping away? I am starting to get anxious or nervous or starting to get snippy, all those different things that we get when we're losing our peace. So I'd love to hear that. What do you do?
I'll start, since I started the last time. It might make sense to them. So for me, and I will still find myself slipping into this. I was able to realize that I didn't have that true, everlasting, like deep in the belly sense of peace in my heart and mind, because I had become complacent. in my faith life, in my prayer life, in my time in his word.
Yes.
Wow.
Working full time, a mom of 4 kids. Yes, we still went to church every week. Yes, we said our bedtime prayers. Yes, we prayed for family members and said prayer for dinner and vacation Bible school and
Wow.
A
all of
lot.
the things.
Yeah.
But it's like I was busy doing all the things and I wasn't really sinking in myself,
Yeah.
Mm.
especially with reading his word. It
Yeah.
was like a quick prayer, I'm exhausted, good night. So for me, when I went through my struggle, it's been about 5 years ago now, and I always say, like, I wouldn't necessarily choose to do it again, nor would I wish it on anyone,
Yeah.
but I'm so grateful he carried me through that fire,
Yes.
because I would
Wow.
not be where I am today had he not like taken me literally and shook me awake and said, Jodi, like, I am what you need.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, sorry, Elise, can I ask you a
Go for it.
question? So talk to yourself right before the moment that God was like, okay, girl, you're not listening to all the knocking. I'm coming through the door, right? Like, and you're going to park it with me for a minute. Like the revelation moments that we all get from the Lord, what would you say to the mom who's one knock prior to that moment? How would you help her be
Good.
motivated to that sinking deep kind of relationship?
Yeah, that's good, because when you're there, it's so hard. You feel like
Yeah.
nothing can fix it. And I think that's what I'd say.
Wow.
You can't fix it. Your husband can't fix it. Your kids can't make it go away. Your friends can't take you out to dinner and make it all better.
Yeah.
Like, only God can fix this. And it's not even that it needs fixing. It's just there's some brokenness there that
Mhm.
only he can heal.
Yeah.
And until
Wow.
his light comes in, no, you can band-aid it all you want, but until he becomes the main person that you turn to, that you surrender to, that you dig in his word, even sometimes when it doesn't make sense, I'm like, what are you trying to tell me, God? Eventually it does. Like,
Yeah.
you learn his voice and you hear his voice, and I mean, that would be it. Like, could I talk to myself like 5 years prior to all of that happening? It would have been, Jodi, make time for God beyond
Mm.
just church, like
Yeah.
that personal, deep
Relationship.
connection. And that's hard. I get it, because you're a mom, you're busy, you got kids, like
Yeah.
it's exhausting. So now, I mean, it's easy for me to get up in the morning and have an hour of quiet time because my kids are older. And
Yeah.
it's a different season of life. But I think there's always a way that you can work it in there somehow, and reprioritizing all those other things that I was kind of
Mhm.
managing and scheduling. One of those should have gone so that
Yeah.
I could have made time for him, so that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really would have been experiencing the other things in a more peace-filled way.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Jodi, I want to read the book that you write entitled The Brutality of Busy. Right there.
Yeah.
I want to read that blog
Oh,
post, whatever it
gosh.
is.
Good
Yeah.
title,
I
Jess.
know.
Hey, I'm putting it out
I
there
would
because I want to
say,
read it.
Jodi,
I used
right.
to love busy. Now I am a hater of busy
Me
now.
It's
too.
brutal. It's brutal. Is it not? It's a
It is.
brutal taskmaster,
It's like,
relentless.
yep, it's like kind of
Mhm.
beating yourself up, but you don't know you're doing it. Jodi,
Yeah.
one of the things I want to, what I'm observing and what knowing some of your routine and stuff is, you're like, we talk about our anchor verse in the book that we wrote, and your anchor is the Lord. And so that's it. Like, he has made that
Yeah.
so plain to you. And it sounds to me almost like, and I do think this is a place we get, it's not there's Jodi and there's God. It's there's Jodi and there's God. Like, there's a oneness in what you're
Mhm.
saying because of the reliance and also because of the dedication. I think, to being with the Lord in that way. That it's just think about your
Mm-hmm.
spouses who you're with all the time. Like, how
Right.
does it change your relationship if you weren't seeing your spouse very often? Dramatic,
Exactly. Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really that's awesome. Love it.
Yeah. It was life changing.
Yeah.
It's been life giving. Like I said, I'm glad that he broke me in that way.
And I know that you love it so much. Like that's very clear, Like it's like,
Yeah.
it's not like I have to, it's I get to.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's because, I remember everybody telling me, so for you moms out there, if anybody is feeling this way, I mean, it'll get better, Jodi. It gets better. And I'm thinking, there's no way. There's no way this is going to get better.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yeah.
It does if you make your relationship with Christ the number one thing.
Priority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Got something, Jess?
Well, I was just going to say, like on the back end of that, I think in our modern like day and age, we want the checklist. We want the quick sound bite. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
How do I get my kid to listen to me? How do I get them to clean up their room? Like the laundry list of solutions that we're looking for. And if I'm going to give you a laundry list of solutions, it's going to be the Christian disciplines, but they take time.
Yeah.
And they aren't fast, and they do their work over a season and a journey and an entire thing. But it's like prayer, meditation, fasting, silence and solitude, worship. These are the weapons of our warfare. This is actually how we stay in peace, is actually practicing these disciplines on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it isn't I ticked the box today. I prayed for my 35 seconds before I fell asleep.
Right.
Is.
Or I fell asleep and then I woke up and said my quick prayer.
There you go. That's it.
I'm really an exhausted mom.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is not a cure for insomnia. It's just merely a joke about it. But apologies to all of those mamas who actually are suffering with it. I know quite a few, but I struggled with a mini season of what I'll call midnight wake ups, where, I slept soundly, but then it was like 2 a.m. I'd get up and I would be awake for hours, and I couldn't shake it. I was like,
awful.
Why am I not sleeping? And I had a pastor friend of mine tell me this, so I can't claim this credit as my own thought, but he said to me, when I get woken up in the middle of the night, I just start praying for all those people that I don't know Jesus. And he goes, man, I sleep great now. So I thought that was quite funny.
Yes.
And I started doing that. I was like, when I wake up in the middle of the night, if someone's like pressed on my heart, like I think about my sister, or I think about her kids or something. I'm like, okay, Lord, what do you want me to say? Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation about how they're doing. And should I call them in the morning and tell them that I'm thinking about them or praying for them or whatever? And, it only takes a few, I'll say this, it only takes a few of those nights and you'll know exactly why you've been woken up.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
That's great.
I'm glad that he doesn't use that method. I'm such a sleeper. When I've had a few, when I went through menopause and stuff, and everybody was talking about their midnight wake ups and 4 o'clock, I was just like, Lord, I know you love me and you do not want me to die an early death, because that will kill me.
Oh my goodness, Elise.
But I do have to say, even today when I was at the physical therapist, I was, the first part of it is like resting with a heating pad. And I was just like, okay, I was kind of sitting there and I thought, I could get my phone, listen to something. But I kind of thought my therapist would probably not be happy about that, because he's very, hands-on, not big techno guy, which is ridiculous. But anyway, that's another point. Anyway, I was lying there and I was just like, use this opportunity to pray. And I'm reminded by what you're saying, and I'm sure we all know this is true, but it's just a good reminder. he neither sleeps nor slumbers. He's not asleep at any time. So
Mhm.
he is always available, always
Uh-huh.
ready to hear our prayers. And I think that's a good time to use your prayer time whenever
Yeah.
you're there going, okay, what am I doing now?
Yeah. And moms that are
Absolutely.
chauffeuring, like if you're like me, you're in the car a lot. Like
Yeah,
you're just like sports here, doing that, you know,
yeah,
you're just in the car a
yeah,
ton.
yeah. That's
And my poor kids, well, I don't care. I'm praying.
I'm sure you don't.
Yep. I mean, you guys know me actually really well at this point, and they're just like, oh, mom is on a roll again. But I had a funny conversation with my son this morning about prayer because I asked my kids this question. I said, do you think God hears you? And
Question.
yeah, exactly. Do you think God hears your prayers? And both of them, I mean, my daughter was a little bit more confident. She's like, yeah, I think God hears me. You know, my son was kind of like, you know, maybe. And I said, do you think God hears my prayers? I asked him that.
Mm,
And he was like, oh yeah, God
interesting.
hears my mom for sure. You know, but
Interesting.
we had a dialogue about it. I said, Truman, I said, well, why do you think God hears my prayers? He's like, he just does. Because he tells you stuff. And I said, yeah, I said, here's the deal, Truman. And I did this little illustration, but I just said, if you're running out the door and you're like, bye, mom, see ya, I got baseball. And
Ooh,
you walk
good
out and,
example.
you know, and you don't, I don't say anything. Did I hear you? He goes, I said, yeah. I said, now what if you fly out the door? Hey, mom, I got baseball. And I say, okay, bye, Truman, love you. Did I hear you? He said,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And I said, you got to wait to hear from God.
yeah. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
gotta give him a little room.
so true.
Yeah. And
Wonderful.
you know, it's like that. The reason you know that I hear from God and God hears me is because I wait to hear. I'm sitting there going like, are you,
Yeah, I didn't get a sign.
yeah.
Are you sure you're there?
Yeah.
But it's a good question, and it's a way for your children to lean into
Mm-hmm.
the truth. And
Yeah.
also, there's never a bad time to model prayer to our children. So
Yeah.
whatever, he'll get it.
Yeah.
It'll get in there. I actually, I'm a big prayer too. And I find it interesting how people ask me for prayer because I'm kind of like, okay, I'm not any closer to God than you are actually.
Yeah.
So you can do that. But it just, for whatever reason, some people look at it that way. Their faith isn't as deep as I know it will be, but it's just kind of like, will you pray for me? And people don't necessarily feel that they have that power, but it has to do with
Mm.
relationship. But that doesn't mean God hears us
Yeah.
better than them,
Yeah.
which is
No,
something you
yeah.
learn. Michele, I'd
Mhm.
love to hear from you.
I grew up with a mom who, like you guys were talking about, probably like Jess, who prayed for everything. She lost her keys, she was praying.
Oh my
She
gosh, I love her.
couldn't find her shoes, she was praying. So we
Yes.
kind of
That's
grew up like
great.
that. So I've tried to model that because I saw how significant that was in my mom's life and how it impacted me.
Mm.
But over the last year, with everything going on, I noticed that once the day got going, I didn't find myself talking as regularly as I used to the Lord. And I don't know if it had to do with interruption of schedule with COVID. So I did something, you're going to laugh. I put a little reminder, an alert at the time of day that I knew that I was trying to do things in my own strength and my own power.
Wow.
When it was trying to get Briggs out the door for, sports, or was it homework, the time in my day when I was like, I've got this, back to you hearing that I need the calendar and my sense of control. But it was my way of like that pop up on my phone that said, take some time and pray. And it just kind of,
Love it.
recentered me, said, okay, Lord, I'm still depending on you. I need you, Holy Spirit, guide me. And so it's just been a really silly thing to put on your phone, but for
No.
me, it's practical.
I think
Yes.
that's
think
game
it's
changing.
Great.
Yeah,
I think it's great. And if when
agree.
we think about our to-do lists and our plan for the day, like, why wouldn't he be on
Right.
it?
Right.
Mhm.
But
Exactly.
we do think of
I
it.
love that,
Yeah,
Michelle. I think
I think
that's
that's
great.
a great idea, a great
Mhm.
nugget, which you guys are all beating me to the punch here with the nuggets. But we'll circle back. Yeah, for me, I remember it used to be literally, Jodi, you said something today on Instagram, and I wrote back to you about my little story in the backyard where I felt like I had been away
Yes.
from the Lord because it was
Mm-hmm.
summer and my
Mm-hmm.
kids were all around, and I just didn't have the deep time with God that I was used to having when they were all at school. And God was just so clear to me and so beautiful and so real. I literally felt like he was sitting in my backyard with me going, I've just been sitting here waiting for you. I'm not mad at you. I'm just here and ready. Let's go. And it was just such a
That's amazing.
wonderful feeling. Yeah. So for me, and I have to say honestly, and even discussing this, there have been times when I've been closer to the Lord. And when I was the state coordinator for Moms in Prayer, for example, for 5 years, I was so reliant on God because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know the word the way a lot of the people knew, a lot of the organization knew the word. It was newer to me because I was raised Catholic, and I still am Catholic actually. And but it's just not something that we didn't have Bible study. We didn't have Sunday school. We had CCD, which, anyway, also another discussion. But I just was so reliant on God. I didn't know what I was doing. I also was the last thing I would have ever called myself back then is a leader. And yet I was called into leadership very clearly. So it was just like,
Wow.
I don't know what I'm doing. And you do, God. So every single day and every moment in this ministry, it's all whatever you do through me. And I still miss that because it was so rich. And that's why I'm always kind of like, could we have a God adventure, Lord? And I feel like this book has been a God adventure when he just takes over and he does his thing and he makes something out of, you're just kind of going along going, okay. And then all of a sudden there's something that is, the sum is greater than the parts. And that's, I feel like what he's done with this.
Amen.
But when I lose my peace, I do pray like all the time. But if I'm really losing my peace, well, no, I think one of the biggest things is I cry out. And God is so good that he hears our cries and he will do something neon sign, what I call neon signish. And that's either going to be somebody says something to me, it's repeated in a couple of different ways. It shows up in my devos. It shows up on, the song I tune into. It's just like boom, boom, boom. I am here. I heard you. You're crying out to me. And here's my confirmation that I'm here. And I'm answering you and I haven't left the room. So that's one of the things that I am really grateful for, that when I reach the end of myself, that place where we're no longer in control and I've got my worries and I just say, Lord, I really, please show up. And he does. And I believe that's true for all of us if we're paying attention. So.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key. And it kind of goes back to what we've all been saying about being present and being aware of the conversation that you coincidentally had with the neighbor down the street, or the Devo that happens to be the Devo that you open up to, or when you open your Bible, the verse that you're there, or just slowing down and being aware of all of those things.
Yes.
I think sometimes, like what I've shared with people, they're like, well, what do you mean? Like you hear from God? Like, and I'm like, I personally have never heard like the voice of God. I know people have, and that they do. That has not been my experience.
Yeah.
But I hear from him through like everyday life, whether it be conversations or something that I've experienced or I've seen or read or have heard. We just have to slow down enough to be aware, because he's all around us all of the time.
And willing, I think really willing to be present to us if we will take note. And if we don't dismiss things, relationships, conversations, whatever it is, if we trust that actually is the Lord making his way to us. I think that's a really good, I'm thinking about, somebody has a ministry, she's on Instagram, I think it's a woman named Lori Margot, and she actually has her ministry is called Tracking God. And she actually has a
Mm,
course where she
Mm.
teaches people how to track God. And I haven't taken the course yet, but I just think it would be fascinating because I think it
wow.
would be like a re-upping of something
Hmm.
that I just believe. We used to say in Moms in Prayer, there is no such thing as a coincidence, only a God incidence. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so we're gonna just a final nugget, which you can use what you've already shared and just tie it up in a little bow of a sentence, if you can figure that out for moms, in particular who are listening to this podcast regarding peace. What's a nugget that you can share with us?
I think I would tell the moms that were listening to use your gifts and don't try to use someone else's gifts right where you are. If you're at home
Yeah.
with little ones, don't be wishing that time away and try to be in that next season. Enjoy the season that you're in. Use the gifts right where you are, whether it's in your home, in your church, if you're a working mom, whatever season that you're in, use the gifts that you have and not try to use someone else's gifts.
Mm, good one. Love it. Yes. Be you. You be you.
Yeah.
I would say sorrow lasts for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So, sometimes you are going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel like you're drowning. And that feeling, that emotion,
Hmm.
may be there for the evening, may be there for that moment,
Yeah.
but joy comes with the dawn. And so some of the things that I would do to usher in that is laugh on purpose. Now, I know that sounds like you're contriving something, but let me just say this. If you start fake laughing for long enough, you'll actually start really laughing,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
especially if you have kids. So,
Hmm.
when you want to cry and you've had a bad mom day, like maybe you've just lost it. You just lost it on your kids. You messed up. You made a big mistake. It's like, just get your kids around you and just start laughing and
Mm,
just see what happens.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Mm.
I love
giggle
it.
on the floor. So yeah, reclaim that joy. You can do it.
Yeah. Fake it till you make it.
That's
Just
it.
simple as
Fake it
that.
till you make it. And then it'll come to you. It'll just bubble out of you. You don't even
True.
know.
It's true. How about you, Jodi?
I think just be real. Um, I
Mm,
think like we've kind of have said over and over in this conversation and not so many words is we tend to suppress and stuff down the anger, the frustration, the chaos, the mess, and everything's good and I'm fine. I'm great. I'll do it. Sure, no problem.
mm,
And it certainly doesn't serve us to stuff all of those feelings away because eventually they're going to come to a head and explode.
yeah.
But I think it does if you have children or family or coworkers or you spend time with whoever you're spending time with, like show them the real you.
Mm.
Because everybody learns from that. Everybody gains from, it didn't do any of my coworkers or my closest friends any good to think, oh, Jodi had it all together. She
Yeah.
just does everything and she's just so great at this and so great at that. And she never needs any help. She's super mom. It, that doesn't do anybody any good.
No. No.
And it was almost as hard as it was for me to share my story and some of the specifics of it. It was like a release, almost like a freedom. And
Yeah.
I think for some of my closest friends too, like, oh my God, like you're not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's
And I
really
think for
good.
our kids to see that too, like
Yes.
moms and dads and grandmas and people have bad days too
Yeah.
and get angry and get frustrated and are nervous and are embarrassed. We're not these like superpower, superhumans that like just, oh, everything's great. I never feel this way. I think letting our
Yeah.
kids see those feelings too, it helps them know that it's okay for them to have those feelings
Yeah.
and that it will get better. It does get better, or you'll get through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be real.
I
Like
think I think
feel
that
the feelings
feel the
and let them
feelings,
show.
express the feelings. I think that
Yeah.
again is one of those things that we run around thinking that we have to look a certain way. Again, for me, I had this belief that this was what it was going to look like. So I was trying to make it look like that.
Yeah.
And inside I was feeling completely overwhelmed, and as we've talked about, doing so many different things, and feeling like a failure at all of them instead of like I was doing well with all of them. So it's a journey. My little nugget is such a simple one, but it really helps me when I am just kind of, in addition to the crying out that I already talked about, music really helps me. Putting on some good Jesus music. My favorite is Lauren Daigle, Look Up, which I do mention in the book. Just kind of music. When I listen to music, I get immersed. And I remember, like, I hear the words and I'm like, oh yeah, that's who God is. Like, or something like Corey Asbury, I think his name is, The Reckless Love of God. Do you guys know that song?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's just so, it's about God's crazy love for us. Or another one is Carrie Job's Blessings. Oh, it's just like, okay. May his blessings be upon me. So that's mine. I need
Great.
music. I need to kind of be covered up with the Lord.
I want to see Elise in worship one day. I just want to see it. It'll be like David, like just unashamed before the Lord.
I do really. I love worship. We actually, I mean, so many things have been canceled. We actually had, a bunch of us had tickets to Lauren Daigle, for example. And I think we still have tickets in June with Chris Tomlin in the area.
Oh, he's great.
Come on now.
Yes, and I've seen him before, so I know he's an amazing entertainer, but also connected and all that stuff. All right, so that's it. I want us each to say our name and where people can find you. That will be in our show notes as well. And then I'm going to close this up with a quick prayer, and we are done with this conversation. But I will be coming back on with each one of these women to share one of their devotionals. And we really believe that this book is going to bless you. So we're hoping you will order it. Right now you can get it at Barnes & Noble. And please, God, by the time you listen in, we will be on Amazon as well. Yes. Please, God, say a prayer for us. Okay, so where can we find you, Jess?
You can find me on my website, which is jessicacarey.co. You can also find me on Instagram, Jess_Carey AZ, and Facebook. So there I am.
There you go. Michele.
You can find me at Michele L. Wilber on Instagram, where I mostly hang out. And you can soon find me at michelellwilbert.com.
Yay. Okay. Jodi?
I'm mostly on Instagram at J Kinasewitz. You can also find me on Facebook, Jodi Kinasewitz, and maybe one of these days I'll do a website.
You will. And you can find me at EliseDalyParker.com, where you can also find the MomVision podcast. And I'm at Elise Daly Parker at Elise Daly Parker on Instagram and Facebook as well. So, okay. Thank you guys. I love you. I'm thankful for you. I'm going to just close us up in a quick prayer as we bless the women who listen to this. Lord, we just thank you for bringing us together this evening. We thank you for connecting us through the miles across the country. We are so thankful for what you've done. And Lord, you will do the same for everybody who is listening to this show today. You love them, you see them, and you are making connections for them that are true God connections. And as we have said, Lord, there is no thing as coincidences